Hi guys, welcome back to the Earthly Lights podcast. Today, as you can see in the title, we're going to be talking about the coronavirus and its effects, what we're doing to keep sane, and what maybe we can learn from this whole saga. But obviously, before we get going with any of that, we have to start with what's the crack, especially in these hard times. So, Jim, what is the crack? How are you doing?
What's up, man? Strange times, yeah. It's hard to put one or two words on it. It's just it's particularly strange seeing people who are being put in a scenario that they hadn't been in before. Like for instance, my dad. Okay, my dad was talking to a woman he met, who he knows her for like 20 years, but he met her at the park. We were at the park yesterday, and he said something along the lines of, yeah, there's no shame, as in, because so many people have lost their jobs, they're currently unemployed now. He's like, yeah, there's no shame in it anymore. And it was funny because I was only telling you that I would like to do a podcast on shame a few weeks ago when I felt shame about applying for the dole, you know?
Mm.
And it's funny how once, for a lot of people, once something is more widespread, then they accept it. You know, for instance, if my dad lost a job yesterday and it wasn't the coronavirus, should he have been feeling more shame? But it's more that now he knows that so many people that he knows is unemployed, that he's like, yeah, there's no shame in that. That's fine. Yeah, that's what everyone's up to right now. And like, it's great for people to have that to rely on, because obviously a lot of people view their jobs as, you know, their reason to get up in the morning, and, you know, their means of paying bills and stuff. And when they lose that, they may, I think the society we live in will then lead many to feel some kind of inadequacy. But it's interesting. That's one of the real poignant things that I've taken from the last few days. Like it is a nice kind of togetherness. Yeah.
Yeah,
What
no, for
about?
sure. It's brought us. It's weird because it's kind of brought us together, even though we've been literally mandated to stay apart. And that's what's actually brought us together as a country, as a continent, and maybe even as a planet. You know, it's weird. I'm a bit down, to be honest, just because I've been at home now for like 16, 17, 18. I've actually just lost count around that region, just over 2 weeks. And when I say I've been home, I mean I haven't left the house. Well, that's a lie. I've left the house to empty the bins once, and that's it. And it's draining because in Madrid, we're not, you know, in Spain, it's not like England or I think the UK or Ireland, where I think you're allowed out once a day to do exercise. We're not allowed out whatsoever unless it's absolutely necessary. So obviously doing the right thing, which is staying at home. So hopefully that we can get this over with before sooner rather than later. But that being said, staying at home the whole time is really hard work. Got the news recently that the company that I work for is going to start a process called an ERTE, which is basically in Spain, it's a legal process, which what it means is they will reduce your hours and they'll pay you, you know, the subsequent hours that you're working. So we're going under a massive reduction. So instead of working 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week, which would be 100% of the time, obviously, they've reduced my hours to 70%. So I'll be only working 2.5 hours a day. So I'm only working 30% of the time.
Wow.
I would normally be working.
Man.
Yeah. And which means I only get soon, I think. We don't know quite yet because all the paperwork has to get done, but soon. And that means I only get 30% of pay. There's some help from the government. We don't know what that quite means yet, how much I'll get paid after I get the 30% from the company and the whatever it is from the government. I'm trying not to worry too much. My big kind of cure to keeping sane is keeping things in perspective. That's what really helps me. It's just a personal thing. I've kind of found that always gets me out of my slumps, just to kind of recognize that a lot of people have it worse off. And luckily, even though maybe my job isn't as secure as it once was, Louise's job, she's been told that she's won't be losing her jobs, nor will her hours be reduced, and that she's got a renewal for the next year. So among the two of us, we'll be able to cover rent. And, I don't have kids to pay for or anything like that. So I'm just trying to keep positive
You have your
by
health.
keeping in perspective. Yeah, exactly. So this is what, so I'm just trying to keep positive in that sense, but I can't lie, it's a bit of a downer. And staying at home for so long has been a bit of a downer, but there's a couple of things that I've been doing intermittently, maybe not with as much, as much as I should be doing. But yeah, we'll talk about that. So I guess the best thing to do is just to get into the main segment, and then we can talk about those things. Yeah.
Let's do it.
Okay, so this is going to be like a two-part podcast where this first off, we're just going to talk about things that we've been doing or we've seen people doing to keep kind of on top of their shit. And then the second part of the podcast will be talking about things that maybe we as a society, as a people, that we can learn from this episode and maybe take forward to make the world a slightly better place, hopefully. Trying to keep things positive. So the first thing that I have been doing, which has kept me positive, is reading books, man. I've taken this opportunity to read books, not audio books, not that, and I love audio books, but I found that because I'm always on a screen, be it with work or, the typical thing, Netflix, YouTube, and then you obviously with your mobile just constantly refreshing the feed just to watch films and stuff is just not relaxing. And to have an audio book, it doesn't need 100% of my focus. Whereas if I have a hard actual book in my hand, then I need to have 100% focus as I read those pages. So I started off reading 365 Days Past the Traffic Lights, which is by our future guest Rose Yavner Taylor, and that was really, really good book. I think she did it really well, especially as she's not an established writer. I think it was really good. It's funny because I kind of felt like I knew her. I mean, we've had a back and forth beforehand, obviously getting her onto the podcast, but it's kind of weird now because I feel like once we do sit down to have the podcast, I feel like I'll know this stranger fairly kind of intimately. So which is
your
weird.
favorite hip hop artist.
Yeah, it feels like I know her deepest, darkest secrets, which I said to her, I was like, it's really weird because I feel like I know you. And if I walk past you on the street, I probably wouldn't even recognize you. So it's a weird one, but it's a really good book. So, I mean, fair play to her. And I think it's really useful for anyone who's kind of gone through grief or has a friend who's going through grief who maybe just wants to learn how you can better support that friend, or, anything to do with grief. If you're interested in that topic, any way, shape or form, I really recommend the book 365 Days Past the Traffic Lights by Rose Yavner Taylor. And it's really, it's short. That was my one complaint to her. It's my one gripe. I said it's too short. I wanted it to be longer. I did it in 2 days, which was unfortunate. I realized I should have rationed it out. But it kind of the chapters kind of led on to each other in a good way. Mm-hmm. And so kind of just forcing myself to stop seemed kind of stupid, and so before I knew it, that book was over and done with, which is unfortunate.
Did she give any hint of a possibility of a sequel?
Man, I told her, I was like, you should what's my math here, 365 days times 2, 730, I think, is that correct? So I was like, mate, you should do like a 730 or 1090 day past the traffic lights. And she was like, it's funny, I've actually, in a weird way, have been thinking about the sequel, but she's not too sure yet. I don't think it's set in stone. But I was like, I would definitely recommend doing so. I don't know. I think she writes well. She brings things into perspective well. And I think her ultimate goal, she achieved it because, it's funny. I feel like we're kind of kindred spirits, you and I, with her, because she wrote that book because she was a young person who had gone through something and she just couldn't find the material from someone else who was young. So she decided to take it up on her own shoulders to write that book. And I kind of feel like that's the same reason we started this podcast, is that we're two young guys who have gone through our own separate things and we couldn't find podcasts that that did that for us, that had a young host talking about the problems that we were going through. So we started that podcast, and so we kind of did our own personal projects for the exact same reason, I think, anyway. So no, I really enjoyed the book, man. I can't. And I know you're going to read it soon as well,
for sure,
maybe.
for sure.
So I'll be interested to hear your thoughts when you get around to doing that. But I really enjoyed it, and then since then they came today actually, so I'm looking forward to getting started. I got 2 books about American Indians or Native Indians. I'm not sure which is I think it's Native Indians. One called
Native
Burying My
Americans,
Heart.
Seb.
Native Americans, whatever. The native people know what I'm saying. Look, I don't think we have many listening to the podcast, so hopefully there's no one offended. Yeah, Bury My Heart, A Wounded Knee, and the other one is Empire of the Summer Moon. So that should be interesting, just to learn about something that I don't really know much about, to be too honest. And then I've got one which is maybe a bit more linked to this podcast, which is called This Too Shall Pass, Stories of Change, Crisis and Hopeful Beginnings, which seems quite apt with this coronavirus thing. Hopefully this shall pass.
How did you come across the book? Were you just searching how are we going to get through this?
No, I always do the same thing when I'm in need of books. I always go on Waterstones, go on their website, see what they recommend, and then buy it from there. So they recommended this, and I was like, I prefer nonfiction. So that was it. This was in the bestsellers nonfiction section. Went on to it, and then it's basically what it's about is this. I think she's called Julia Summers. Let me just double check that. Julia Samuel. And she's a psychotherapist or psychiatrist. And basically what she does is she just kind of, I haven't read the book, obviously this is just a synopsis, but she kind of writes about her cases with her clients. Obviously, I'm assuming that there's no names given, or if there are, there'll be pseudonyms to protect privacy. But and they're basically all obviously the cases vary from people coming out to a woman deciding whether she should leave her husband for a younger lover, to a father getting to terms with a terminal illness. So there's a whole host of different just life stories, really. And I'm assuming, haven't read the book, like I say, but I'm assuming maybe from reading those life lessons, I'm not sure if she comes to a conclusion at the end of each story or what, but hopefully I can learn from some of those stories, if not all of them.
Definitely, man. Definitely.
And put things into perspective. So,
man, just on that note, I remember there's this 3-part series on YouTube called Human, and it's basically a huge compilation of interviews with people from all over the world, talking about 3 themes, and I think it's like love, happiness and loss, or something, love, happiness and death, or something like this. And like you said, it's like when you hear about other people's stories and how they're dealing with it or their perspective on it, it always helps, particularly when you're in a rut and particularly when you can't really seek these perspectives in person.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I don't know any psychotherapists in person, and I'm sure that most of them wouldn't even talk to you about their cases for privacy reasons. So it's kind of good to get obviously she's a professional in this background, so she knows what she's talking about. And then obviously she's got a whole wealth of experience hearing these stories. So I'm looking forward to getting around to reading those 3 books, and hopefully they kind of last till the end of this coronavirus piece of shit. So that's me. Is there anything that you do in particular? Like, I know you kind of only fairly recently gone into lockdown, but is there something that you're doing at home to maybe keep you in tip-top shape?
Basically, man, I get up at pretty much the same time every day. I'll leave the house for a while, do some exercise, come back, do some meditation, have a cold shower. And then that usually
psychopath, absolute psychopath,
and that usually puts me in good nick. Honestly, I've never done those 3 things and not felt pretty good. And then I don't know. I guess I've been kind of taking the decision to maybe lay off or lay away from a lot of the news, because I just think finding out how many more cases we have and how many more deaths probably isn't the best for us, particularly. Yeah, it's just my opinion. Actually,
that's a weird one. I was going to agree with you, right until the very end, because I was gonna say, oh yeah, I don't watch the news either because I don't watch the news. But there's this dashboard that I log into every day which shows like worldwide cases, and like you can click on each country, like it's a world map, and you can click on each country, and then it will show you like how many cases there are and like how many deaths there are. So up until the point of you not watching the news, I'm with you about not knowing how many cases are. I'm completely opposed. I know I have an update in my head, like in fact, like I've got it up here actually as we're talking, because I was like, this might come into handy seeing as we're talking about coronavirus. But yeah, like the US, for example, went up by about 20,000 in one day, which is pretty fucking peak. So
yeah, I mean, like, no, I have a pretty rough idea of it. You can't get away from it because it's just on the papers. Or it's just,
let me test you. Let me test you. Ireland, how many have you got
in total?
Yeah, cases.
In total, we have around 1,000 right now, and we have
wrong, incorrect.
No, what we at?
1,819.
Yeah,
but to be fair, you're doing well on the death count.
I think we have like 20 deaths.
Yeah, 19. Oh, close there, close. Yeah, you've recuperated. 19. Yeah, Spain, we're absolutely fucked. I mean, comparatively compared to Ireland, we're talking 64,059 cases. And 4,934 deaths, which is pretty astounding. And then
it was funny.
Italy, obviously, even worse.
I was reading or watching something the other day, and why I kind of not disagree, where I just am less concerned with the numbers is because the more you think about statistics, I think often the less you think of the actual. Not even this, but me personally, like when I hear stats, it's harder for me to then just think, oh, that's this amount of people, that's this amount of families.
To humanize them.
Yeah, like I don't know, the increase, and not just the over use of statistics or just the emphasis on statistics can often drain the human or the part of you that wants to empathize with the story. It's very hard for me to empathize with the fact that just this is the amount of people that got cases and this is the amount of thing. And so, yeah, I mean, I've heard of stories, and I know countless people that have lost their jobs, and I feel for them. But I mean, much like my perspective on a bigger thing, I think it's very important to stay informed, but until what extent, and that's obviously up to each person. But for instance, I mean, I think it's important to learn about your certain area, and then the small politics or cultural things that are going on, the sporting events. But then the more and more you find out further afield, further the things that you can't control, I think it's very easy to then feel kind of hopeless or a little, I don't know, not useless, but you know, I don't know. It's hard for me to formulate. I just know that I think the best thing for me that I can do is just to do the things that I know make me feel better, and to stay informed to a certain extent. I mean, I'm keeping my distance from people, and yeah, I understand why people are like, oh my God, you see, this person got it, and this person got it, and this person got it, but I'm just trying to be strict on, okay, is this gonna make me feel better or is this not? And then if it's not,
I think with me, like what I did for a lot of it was, like at the beginning, I just accepted that we were all gonna get it, basically, and then it was just like, oh, okay, well, so if we accept the fact that basically all of us are gonna get it, or the large majority of us are gonna get it, that doesn't mean we're all gonna die from it, obviously. Then it's just easier, because the thing is with these numbers as well, you've got to like take into account that this is only for people who are tested, you know, and the vast majority of people who are tested are the rich and the famous. And when you think the rich and the famous probably are the ones who have the best healthcare, the best like circumstances to kind of avoid coming into contact with the general public, you've got to think that the people who can't necessarily avoid that, or who live in like really really kind of densely populated areas and stuff like that, the chances are you're probably going to get it. You know, like one of my friends, Ollie, he lost his sense of taste and smell completely. Like he can breathe fine, so it's not a question of like, oh, he's got a cold. You know, it's not one of those things. He's like completely just lost his sense of taste and smell, but everything else is fine. And so when you look at it, you read up on coronavirus, it seems that that's like a telltale sign, like almost 100%. So if I was to bet my bottom dollar, I would probably bet that my mate's got it. However, obviously he's doing the sensible thing. He's self-isolating. He's staying at home, and he's a young guy. Hopefully, he's not one of those rare cases of young people who do actually get really negatively affected by this. Because I think that is something that we should kind of highlight. That people seem to think that it's only if you're 80 years old you should be worried, but there are stories of people who, there's a 31-year-old Olympic swimmer from South Africa who was like almost on his deathbed. I think he's got through it now, but I mean, if an Olympic swimmer can get negatively affected by it, then I think anyone else is definitely at risk. But what I'm trying to say is that once you kind of accept that this is probably a lot of us are going to have it, but a lot of us will maybe not really get the symptoms or get one or two of the symptoms and not really suffer, then I think it's just easy to accept when you start hearing, oh my God, Boris Johnson's got it. Oh, Idris Elba's got it. Oh, you know what I mean? It's just a lot easier to accept the fact, because I think the vast majority of us have it. We just don't know we do. And we never will categorically know, because we're never going to get tested, because you're not in those high risk rates, or you're not rich enough to get your own private test. So you just kind of have to, it's a like it or lump it situation. But yeah, it's an odd one. I sympathize with Italy massively. Obviously, I've got family out there. So luckily, as of now, it would seem that my family are fairly safe. Doesn't seem to be anyone showing symptoms and whatever else. So that's good. But obviously, we take it on a day-by-day basis. Yeah. But it seems as if Italy is starting to slow down a bit and starting to kind of get to terms with this. And obviously, my family live in Milan, it's the worst affected area, so it's even more kind of precarious over there. But yeah, just trying to keep positive. Look, if they. My whole thing is just like, it's one of my sayings. I always say it is what it is, and I always try to think there's no point worrying too much about something you have absolutely no control over. So be that your job, be that getting the coronavirus or whatever it may be, if you like work yourself up into a panic, you're just really doing yourself no favors. So I'm just trying to keep a cool, keep level headed, and if we find out some of my family get it, we'll cross that bridge when it comes to it. If I find out I get it, I'll cross that bridge when it comes to it. If I find out I lose my job,
we take it from there.
We'll take it from there. Yeah. My job's been reduced, my hours have been reduced, but keep things in perspective. Hopefully, like my CEO said, he said, we're doing this so that you don't have to lose your job. We're doing this as a precautionary measure so that in the future, no one gets sacked, as in from the fallout of all of this. So we'll take it from there. Look, my dad's situation, he obviously is a restaurant owner in England. When this first came out, he was really kind of negative about the situation, because at that time, the government hadn't brought out any financial aids. And my dad was like, how am I going to pay all of this staff, all of the suppliers, pay for the lease and everything else when there's no income coming in? And then in 2 weeks' time, that picture's completely changed, and fair play to the government. They've brought out massive programs that have really helped. And my dad's, positive about the situation as much as you can be in a pandemic. So I just think
it's good to hear, man.
You know what I mean? You just got to try and keep things chill, and then cross those bridges when you come to them.
For sure, man. But what I also hope is, I mean, it's definitely going to happen where there are going to be many people who are not going to be able to get put back on, or like, as in, I do think a lot of people will just lose their jobs.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
What I really hope doesn't happen is that people then start to feel like their value or what they can contribute is less. As in, I really do think I made a wild prediction a while ago where I thought in the near future there would be high unemployment rates, and then that it was down to the people to decide, okay, was my value based on what I could do with the money I earned and what I did to get this money, or is my value on just what I can do for myself and the people around me? And and like we're already seeing, like, people have lost their jobs, but it's definitely not making them any less useful.
No, and what your dad's saying about the shame thing, Yeah. I mean, if you think about, we don't know what the economic fallout of this is going to be just yet, obviously, but there's predictions that it might be something similar to maybe the 2008 crash, or they may be slightly shorter. But even then, if you think about it, like, the 2008 crash, that was brought on by human greed. Like, that was our own doing in reality. I mean, not the majority of the public. We were completely innocent in it, but bankers are still humans, even though that might be hard to believe. And that was their own doing. So we had ourselves to blame. And if they lost their jobs because of it, they had themselves to win. If you're losing your jobs now because you're a waitress or your company's gone bust or whatever it may be, there is no shame attached to that whatsoever. You know, it is just one of those things. It is what it is. And I think what your dad said is completely right. You know, there's no need to feel any shame about this situation whatsoever.
No, not at all.
So
yeah, so this is why I am cautiously optimistic of what happens when the dust settles after this.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Like, there's a few things. There's kind of a few separate themes. There's the environmental stuff. There's the economic stuff. There's the community side, the societal side of things. That there's all different fallouts from that. I guess we should start off talking about the community side of things. I think that's maybe the most important and most pertinent to this podcast. But we said, it's funny how we've felt a greater sense of community, even though we've been told to stay apart. Do you think that that's something that will kind of carry on? Or do you think that once people start to get back into their normal routines and start to live their busy lives again, that we'll start to ignore the person that we walk past, and we'll no longer say hello to our neighbors, and we'll no longer do these communal things that we've started to do in this time?
I don't have an answer, right?
But, I know it's a hard question. I realized that when I was asking, I was like, I'm literally expecting him to have a crystal ball here. But just interested in your thoughts. Like, you're normally more positive than I am, so I'm just like interested to see what you think.
What I think is real interesting is why there is a bigger increase in the sense of community. As in, I already notice more and more people around my area are just saying hi to each other, just walking down the street, or you're in the supermarket and people are just going, Jesus, it's mad, isn't it? So, as in, people all now are going, oh yeah, I have something in common with this person, so I can say hi, or I can do this. But what I think is interesting is you have already so much in common with this person without this virus, but you have given yourself this, I don't know, like whatever the way we live now, we think of ourselves as a bit more separate, rather than we still have so many things in common with this person and that person and this person, and we still can do these things outside of these difficult times.
Do you know what my take is on that? Like, just to butt in quickly, I just think that what it was is that we're so interested in putting people in boxes, right? And so it's like, oh, what are you? Are you a lefty or you're a righty? Oh, I'm a right winger. Okay, cool. So you're this type of person. Oh, what are you? Are you a young person or you're an old person? Oh, I'm a young person. So I don't talk to the old people on my street or in my community because I have nothing in common with them. Oh, what are you? Are you a sporty person or are you a gamer? Oh, no, I'm a gamer. So I stay at home. And so we just keep on putting everyone in boxes, right? We put ourselves in boxes. We define ourselves by the box that we put ourselves in and these groups that we kind of affiliate ourselves with. And I think that this coronavirus has just wiped that out completely, and it's just made us realize that like the one group that we all pertain to is the human group, and like we're all humans, and that everything else is just a sack of shit. Like, it's all like just superficial bullshit that we've just created for ourselves, and we've got way too caught up in, and it's taken a pandemic for us to realize that like I have no qualms with someone who's like, who's votes for the right. Really, like, what does it really mean? Like, have they come in and killed my mum? Like, no, like they see the world in a different way. It doesn't mean that they're the worst person, but we're beforehand we were diametrically opposed. It's this constant thing. You're either in my team or you're my enemy. There's no safe ground.
And now there's trenches. No visible enemy, so we just have to go. Yeah. Oh, okay, yeah.
No, and now we're all in the same trench together. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. But I mean, we were always.
We were. Yeah.
It's so I'm a fan of some Eastern thought, and I do think that this thing is teaching us two really important lessons that it's so easy to forget. One is that we're all in this together. Like, we are so connected on such a fundamental basis that you can't even recognize until you have something like this. And two, nothing is guaranteed. Tomorrow is not guaranteed. And I think, I think so often that there is a lot of suffering because people have this misconception that they're, oh yeah, yeah, tomorrow and the next week and then this, yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like, you don't know, you know, you don't know. And then I did, so to answer your question a few minutes ago, I think this will for sure have lasting impacts on people's opinion on whether or not, you know, next year is guaranteed the way it is now, or 10 years is guaranteed the way it is now. And I do think that friendships will have been started and created during this, during which people have taken everybody outside their box and just seen this other person as another person experiencing this crisis. And I do think that maybe they wouldn't have had this friendship without the crisis, but I think when the crisis is over, these friendships will remain, because then they'll go, oh, actually, this is also a person that's going through this at work, or this also has these issues with their parents, or also this thing. You know, we've just so much more in common than we want to, but we want to identify by what we don't have in common.
Literally, we try to choose. That's exactly it. I think as well, though, to add to that, like, there's a part of, okay, yeah, so tomorrow is not promised, but also some of us, maybe the more positive of us, are thinking, oh, when we get back to normal. And I think we have to really accept that there may not be a going back to normal. I think that we have to accept that there is a potential that when this passes, and I'm sure it will pass, but that the world as we know it won't be the same again. You know, there's talks of real governmental policy change coming in because of this, like, for the long-lasting future. And I think that maybe we have to be open to the idea that, like, society as we knew it won't exist, you know, and be open to that fact.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting is you see several of the UK, the US, and in Ireland, they are providing very helpful, and in France and Germany, yeah, other countries that I don't know, other countries or other states are really helping out the people in terms of financial aid. And, you know, the US politician, Alessandra something Cortez, AOC, she's been talking about this for ages. She's been trying to get the idea of a universal basic income. And she's using this as proof that it wasn't the fact that it couldn't be done. It was just a lack of political will. And another beneficial thing is that when the virus, hopefully when it reduces its large impact, people will kind of go, oh, so for instance, in Ireland, they've kind of nationalized healthcare, for instance. So it doesn't matter whether you have private healthcare, that if you are struggling with this virus, you will be seen, which is great. But then after this, you know, in 6 months' time, are they going to just bring it back? And then I'm sure a lot of people are going to be saying, well, why did you do it for this? And what is this person dying? Not irrelevant. And so I think there will be a lot more people just questioning. It's funny, the states are doing really positive things, but it may actually force them. It's put them in a position now where they actually have to, will probably be expected to maintain such positive policies that we haven't seen previously. You know?
Yeah, I mean, I think the question is, why is it taking a pandemic to bring about such positive policies? You know, which is it's a dark question, to be honest, because I think the reality of that is a fairly dark and horrible answer, which I think entails a lot of greed. But it goes to show that, like, and look, I'm not saying that for example, in the UK, they've offered 330 billion. On the table for, like, businesses to help them get through this. Now, I'm not saying that they won't have that's not going to have an economic impact. I'm sure it will do. I'm not saying that's free money, but what it goes to show is that there is money there. Maybe you don't have to offer 330 billion, but there's money there that we're not privy to, that, and not just money, but, you know, resources that we're not privy to, that could at the drop of a hat can be pulled out.
Well, yeah, it's not
save the world. Do you know what I mean?
It's not money. They have just created
resources.
this.
Yeah. So you know, I've got a few friends who work in the NHS, and it's funny. It's so funny because I always talk to people, right? And I've got friends from all over Spain, Italy, and everyone who has a private health sector, they always think that their health sector is the best. So my Italian cousins like, oh, good job this is happening in Italy, especially in Milan, because Milan has the best private health sector, public health sector, sorry, in the world. Spain are saying the same thing, and then the English are so proud of the NHS, which as they should be. But what's funny is that like people are now realizing how important these public services are. And I really hope that we kind of shift our perspective on the importance of certain jobs. You know, beforehand, if you were a banker or a footballer or a broker, or those big jobs, the big earners, that was seen as in awe, right? Oh God, look at him! Look at what he's doing. But if you're a nurse, people would just, oh, okay, that's cool, and no one's gonna go home and be like, oh, my friend Emily, she's a nurse, by the way. Like, no one, do you know what I mean? No one cares. And I think it's only now that people are realizing, like, the health sector, the public services, the police that are helping, these in certain countries,
in the
supermarkets, the army. In Italy, the army is being used to help control this. Like, these are the people who are probably the most undervalued, and in England are classed as low-skilled workers.
Yeah, the
right?
bin men, the construction workers.
Yeah, and they're the ones who are keeping keeping the countries afloat. Like in Spain, the bins get emptied every single night. That hasn't stopped. And I said to Louisa, I was like, imagine if it did stop. Imagine if the bin worker said, you know what, fuck this. Like, I'm not being funny, but why am I going to put myself out there to get coronavirus when everyone else in the country stopped or was working from home? But imagine the chaos that would cause. Imagine a month of lockdown and then a month of just people throwing like all of their food onto the streets, basically, and no one picking it up. Like, imagine the mayhem that would cause. But like I said, like, who cares about being a bin man before all of this stuff? Like, no one saw the importance of that. It's all these jobs that we don't really value, and I'm really hoping that it's more than just a clap at 8:00 in the evening. I'm really hoping that, like, in the future, when this is all passed over and when this is kind of goes down in the history books, that we actually still revere these people as much as we are doing now. Because in reality, as cool as bankers are and however many millions they earn, what the fuck are they doing now? Do you know what I mean? Like, as cool as it is to be a footballer, what are they doing now? Are they saving the world? They're doing kiki up challenges with toilet rolls.
But
this is what I'm saying.
This is something though that I've been thinking about recently, is that everybody has their role to play. And so, for instance, yeah, you say, oh, footballer or something. Yeah, I mean, what are they doing now? I mean, they did provide consistent years of entertainment for thousands, millions of people, and that did help them in that area. And I'm sure these footballers are trying to do the small things for their local community also. And it's just...
You'd hope so.
You don't know. But I do think you have to look at it holistically. Like, people...
Holistically, there it is. I knew it would come up once in this podcast.
For sure. You do, though, because, yeah, you say, oh, yeah, we're the basketball players now. It's like, yeah, but, like, I'm not justifying their high wages or something, but I'm also saying that, yeah, like, they did provide people with well-being. And it's like artists or singers. You're like, oh, where are they now? It's like they've provided us with so much. I mean, some of my favorite artists are releasing albums now. That's huge for us, and that's their way of contributing, or that's their biggest way of contributing.
Oh, 100%. I agree, but it's just what I'm trying to say. Maybe perspective will be my holistic. Maybe I'm going to start saying perspective all the time from now on. But my thing is, can we just get it into perspective? I saw a tweet saying, all well and good clapping the nurses at 8:00 in the evening because England started doing. Spain have been doing that for 2 weeks. Italy have been doing that for longer. I think every country's doing. Obviously, England's only just recently gone into lockdowns. That's why they've only just recently started doing it. But someone tweeted saying, all well and good clapping the nurses at 8 p.m. Now can we change footballers' wages to the nurses' wages? Like, do a swap round, right? And like, I laughed like in a like a that will never happen, which obviously the guy tweeting it knew it was never going to happen as well. I'm not saying that he's thick enough to believe that, but then I started to question myself and I was like, well, actually, like, let's just hold on a minute. Like, in reality, why shouldn't that happen? Why? Like, I understand what you're saying, and look, I'm I was talking to my friend Craig before this about how much we're missing just any type of sport. I mean, we're sports junkies, so we love and football particularly. But the fact that there's no sport on whatsoever is just it's horrible. And so I appreciate the value and that escape that they give people on the weekends more than most people do. However, when it comes down to it, you do realize that there are a lot of jobs that are so overvalued. Okay, and the jobs that really keep every single country, standing, are the ones that are normally the least well paid. Now, I'm not saying that a bin man should after this get a raise to 250 grand a week. But what I am trying to say is that whilst the Alessandro Cortez is talking about a universal basic income, is there not something that maybe we could talk about equaling the playing field? And maybe, I'm not saying that footballers should be on 15 grand a year, but maybe we can bring the footballers' wages down somewhat, and maybe we can start to increase the public services, whether that's health, teaching, police, armies, the bin men, whatever it may be. I think that makes sense. Maybe it's just me being too airy fairy and maybe being too positive, but I think that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world.
I mean, it's ideal.
It's ideal, yeah.
And I do think, like I said before, that these questions will become louder and more prominent as these months continue. I don't know if that will ever happen. I don't know.
I don't think so. I'm hoping though.
Yeah, but I think it's just more the presence of the constant questions will inevitably drip down into some sort of policy. It has to happen. I'm convinced it will happen.
Yeah,
I hope it will. Yeah, I mean,
I'm
convinced more because I want it to be. I don't.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Live in hope.
This is it. I mean, I do think a lot of people are going through some real tough times right now, but I do think there is a bit of a choice in to say, okay, what can I control? Okay, can I do this? Can I do this? Can I do that? Okay, and then we play it on a short basis, a day-to-day basis, week-to-week basis. And I think if you did that, you would have a great appreciation for life. Like, imagine, man, I was only saying to a few of my friends, imagine the parties across the world after this when you can like gather around other people. And then I really think there's going to be such a rich appreciation to going to a gig, to going to a football match, being able to just you do, like just for
walk
you,
in the park.
Yeah,
walk
even
in
for
the park.
you.
Just for me to be able to walk in the park. Oh, I'm just gonna lie on that grass for a good while. Just lie there to take it in.
And this is why I do think it's nice to always. I mean, this is just like for you. It seems like a massive experiment in taking something from you, and then you will appreciate it so much more.
Well, look. I'm just gonna try to do something, Jim, because as it happens, as we're talking now, the Spanish people are actually clapping. So I'm just going to see if I can get it on the mic. I don't know if that came through. I was trying to make it come through. Don't know. Did you hear anything, Jim?
Yeah, we got some of it. Definitely got some of it.
There you go. Well, talk about topical. But what I'm trying to say is
were they clapping for the podcast? Or
yeah, they clap. Come on, Seb, you keep that recording. We are living for this point.
It's a nice podcast. Keep it true.
Exactly. I'm just there, like standing, like, are you not entertained? In my window. No, but what I'm trying to say is that, like, trying to get serious again. No, but what I agree with you, but I think as well, it's that saying, isn't it? What is it? You never know what you've got until you've lost it, or something along those lines. And that's like, people want me to say that about relationships, right? Like, you never know what you've got until you haven't lost it. Talking about like an ex-girlfriend or something. But this is like everything. Like, you don't know what you've got until you lost it. Talking about a walk in the park. Talking about being able to go just down the road to see a mate. Talking about like just doing anything, right? But what I found interesting as well, though, is that, like, talking about maybe like potential changes in society. Obviously, the environmental one's a big one, hopefully. But I think we got so caught up in celebrities. Like, we were talking before about how we got caught up in putting ourselves in boxes. I also think we got caught up in getting overly inspired or kind of even brainwashed by these celebrities and putting them up onto this like deity status, right? And that's just my personal opinion. Because before, there's some people now, young people, as they grow up, and you say, "What do you want to be?" They say, "I want to be famous." And if you ask someone in the 50s, that wasn't an answer, because it just, you didn't have that. And I think because a lot of celebrities now also are celebrities because they don't even have a talent. At least back in the 50s, if you were famous, it's because you could do something extra special. But what I found funny is, and we kind of spoke about this briefly, didn't we, on over WhatsApp, but is that a lot of the celebrities now who have been locked up, they haven't, they've been locked up alone or with their families, but they haven't got their PR team, they haven't got their publicists. And so they're just going crazy as the rest of us are with their phones. And I think some of them are showing how good they are as people, which is commendable. And I'm sure they're getting more fans because of it. But some of them are showing who they actually are, and that maybe we shouldn't be putting some of these people on such a pedestal. Some of them are showing like a real self-indulgence and a complete unawareness of reality of life. I'm trying to keep perspective, but I'm a 23-year-old who in reality I do live paycheck to paycheck, but I know that I've got the safety net of my parents should all fail. I mean, they're not exactly millionaires, but I know that they could help me out for a couple of months at least. But even I'm trying to, keep perspective. I'm not trying to be woe is me. And then you see some of these people like Ellen DeGeneres and, people like that who on the face of things, if you watch their TV shows and you watch their normal social media, they seem the wokest people, the nicest people, right? And then here they are putting videos on Instagram and Twitter of how hard it is for them to live in their LA mansions of 300 bedrooms, a swimming pool, an Olympic-sized swimming pool, massive garden, which is basically the size of the savannah. And there's people who are really, really hard up. And I just think that I'm hoping that maybe we kind of just take them off that pedestal and that we start to appreciate the real heroes that really help us in our day-to-day lives, and that maybe we start to appreciate the nurses and the medics and put them on the pedestal that maybe Ellen DeGeneres, I'm just using her as an example, but others were once on. I don't know if you agree or what's your take on that, but...
Well, I get what you mean. I mean, I did see one video from Ellen DeGeneres. It's more, man, I'm sure that they are trying somehow to, like I said, I do think they're trying. I don't think they're trying to, flaunt, oh, look at the success I have while people are struggling. But I also think it again could serve as a wake up call for them, and to realize, okay, why do I value buying these big houses and these massive acres if really when it's comes down to it, this doesn't fulfill me. Actually, what fulfills me is maybe being more connected with people in my community, this kind of thing. So, it's easy to bash Ellen DeGeneres, but I won't bash her if, because we all do stupid shit, but it's that, what do we learn from the stupid shit? And I think that Ellen DeGeneres could maybe come out on the other end of it, and maybe she starts doing other things, and maybe she, gets a D grade on her house, and I don't know. I just, nobody's life is more important than anybody else's.
No, that's what I mean. Maybe you've come about it in a more holistic way, but that's what I'm trying to get across. Is that
always holistic?
Exactly, but I think we did put, when a celebrity dies, there's outbreak and there's outcry and everyone's like, oh, it's terrible. But then when someone normal dies, it's like, oh, okay. Do you know what I mean? I in reality, I think that actually a lot of us did value celebrities more than we valued our neighbor. And I'm just hoping that we can kind of see that that's not actually important. And whilst footballers and everything else, they give you a great escape on the weekends, and musicians make great music, but I think what we should try to do, or what I'm going to try to do from now on, I mean, I never really held celebrities in a massive way anyway, but what I'm going to try to do from now on is just see them for what they are. If someone's a great singer, they're a great singer, but that's all they are. They're a great singer. They don't have to be something, this deity, this demigod.
Yeah, they're just another flawed person like all of us.
Exactly. Yeah. If someone's a great football, what that means is that they can kick a leather ball into a string net with a higher proficiency than the rest of us. That's all they're good. That's what they're good at. But let's not make these people out into oh my god, he's the savior. No, he just scores a lot of goals. you know, and like let's just leave it at that. And like I think if we can kind of keep, again, I'm going to come back to it, it's my new thing, but keep that perspective, then maybe I think the world would just be a little bit saner, you know. I just don't like, you know, when you see these videos of people screaming because Justin Bieber walked down the street or whatever it may be. It's like, bro, he just sings songs. That is what he does. He sings songs.
But
And like you're screaming, but like
I,
when nurses walk down the street or a fireman walks down the street or your dad who's a concierge or my dad who's a restaurant owner, do they get screamed at? No, they don't get screamed at because they're just doing their job, man. Like it's what
sometimes my
they
dad
do.
does get screamed at.
Well, your dad deserves those screams. To be fair, Connor's a special man. But you get what I'm trying to say, though. Like, let's just keep it all in perspective. That's my big thing. I'm not sure if we should really touch on the environmental thing because obviously, like we know, we've seen the pictures in Venice, you know, of the dolphins, and I mean, there's pictures all popping up all over the world showing how quickly the world is healing. But look, hopefully that will maybe make people more aware, or people who maybe weren't so aware of what global warming looks like. Maybe it's showing us how quickly simple changes can lead to real big changes environmentally. But I mean, we're not an environmental podcast and I don't really have many expertise in that. I don't know if you do, Jim.
Not currently.
No, we'll work on it. Maybe for the next pandemic, we'll get that covered.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I think we should probably leave that one. Is there anything else, like maybe lessons wise, that you're hoping that we can kind of take from this?
Lesson wise, I mean, I think I've said what I hope that we could take from it. I mean, I'm sure other things will come to me, but yeah, I really do think that this can make us appreciate the smallest of things and make us live more on a more present basis. You know, less about next year and next holiday and this and the weekend, rather just like here now. Yeah. I also sorry, continue.
Go on. No, go on.
No, you go.
Okay, well, just to add on to that topic quickly about like living in the moment. Yesterday I recorded a podcast with Michael, which will be coming out later on. But we spoke about like following your dreams in a job sense, right? Going after what it is that you're truly passionate about. And I brought up briefly the Jim Carrey quote, which was that when he saw his dad lose a job that he didn't really care for, he was an accountant, but he didn't really want to be an accountant. When he said, "Oh, I realized that you can fail at something you don't love," I thought I might as well try and fail at something I do. In the same vein of like, just be present. Don't take don't plan 10 years in advance. You know, just try to like make the most of everything. I really hope that this can, if you are one of those unlucky people that has lost your job, or maybe you've kept your job but it's touch and go, right? Or you've just simply worried about losing your job, and now ultimately you have no control over that because they're decisions made by the CEOs and whatever it may be. You know, that's my case. I really hope that this can inspire people to get after it, and just to realize that, like, if you're planning to get after your like perfect job in 10 years time, well, maybe you don't have 10 years, be it for the coronavirus or something else. Like, just get after it now, you know. It's a long process for some people, but I really hope that, like, seeing the fact that a job that you don't care about can be taken away from you because some people may have eaten some questionable animals in a faraway country. If that doesn't kind of give you the jolt to maybe go for things that you maybe thought were unattainable beforehand, I don't know what will. But I just really, that's my big thing. My big thing is just going after something that you really want. Jobs are the things that we spend our most time doing. We spend a minimum of a 40-hour week doing. So if this can inspire you to do something that you really love to do, I think that's a great lesson that we could maybe learn from this. And it's something that I'm trying to work towards with this podcast and so on. So that's just my one little thing that I just wanted to add on.
Thanks, Seb. I agree with you. I just wanted to end. I can't think of a better way to end than a fun fact, which was, I was reading something today, and I came across the German word for squirrel. Okay, and the German word for squirrel is das Eichhörnchen. Okay, but its direct translation is small horned creature of the oak tree.
But where's the horn? I don't get where the horn comes from. Like, do they have different squirrels in Germany that I'm not aware of?
There must have. They must have.
Like, was it, or maybe when this word came up, like there was just a different creature that now no longer exists, that has just been banished to the annals of time.
It could be. It could be.
Or maybe is it tail? Are they trying to think of the tail as a horn? I don't know, man.
I don't have the answers, man. I just know. Shout out to the Germans.
Well, we need to find some Germans and just questioning them on this, because it's perplexing at the very least. What is a horned? What is it? Say it again.
Sorry, it is the small horned creature of the oak tree.
And also, another question, lead-up question to this. I'm not expecting you to answer, but I'm not a squirrel enthusiast. But do they only belong to and house in oak trees? I just assume that squirrels all over the shop.
I think the oak tree is their mother tree. Maybe they hang around other trees, but oak tree is definitely the dominant tree that they chill by.
What does the acorns come from? Does an acorn make an oak tree?
Again, I don't have the answer, Seb. I only have the German translation, the English translation. That's all I got for you.
Let me just quickly check this. Acorn oak tree. Let's just see. The acorn, or otherwise known as the oak nut. So there you go. There we go. Learn something new every day. But yeah, so we need to get some German. It's funny because you say this, because I used to have a friend that I used to live with when I was at uni, and she studied German. Mm-hmm. And they do have some like real literal ways of, like, their nouns are basically just like that, a horned creature of an oak tree. Like it's just an explanation.
They don't beat the bush, man.
Nah, like, like a dog is just called a dog. Like they'll call it some shit, like, I don't know, a four-legged creature that's the man's best friend. Like it's just an explanation is the noun. They don't really have a noun per se. So maybe we should get like a German person on, and we can do that in another squirrely episode.
For sure. Just popped into my head as well that the Russian for bear is the knower of honey.
The knower?
The knower, as in, like he knows.
Oh! I thought you meant as in NOAH.
No. Like
the biblical person.
No. This guy knows honey.
Like he's just a connoisseur of the stuff.
Pretty much, yeah, pretty much.
But that's their name for it, yeah.
Like in Russian, it's just one word, but if you break it down, it's the knower of honey. Yeah.
Jesus.
Man, maybe I'm
gonna try.
Maybe we should do this at the end of every episode.
Well, okay, here's a quick one.
Right.
It's not as exciting, but like breakfast, it only recently occurred to me that means break fast.
Yeah.
Or in Spanish, desayuno. Ayuno is the fast, which means, so breakfast in Spanish is desayuno, which is actually the unfast. There you fucking have it, people. That is what we're talking about here.
Now we're back.
So maybe we should do this at the end of every episode.
Yeah, man, that would be cool. Yeah, I'll be into that.
Okay, cool. So how do you start finding these words? And like, what do you type into Google to get this shit?
No, as in, man, I'm sure it will just come into our lives now that we've made it a thing. I'm sure. I'm sure.
I'm not too sure. It took me 23 years to realize breakfast. Like, you're asking a lot for me to come up with one of these every 2 weeks now.
Okay, leave it to me.
All right, cool. All right. I mean, if I come up with something, I'll let you know. But yeah,
beautiful.
Right, nice one, stuff. So let's leave it there, guys. This has been an hour. We don't want to put you through any more pain. So thank you for listening if you've got this far. As always, like, subscribe, send the message out, get the people to listen to the Earthy Delights podcast, where you can get more fun facts about squirrels and bears.
What else would you want?
That is all you need in these strangest of times, the very strangest and squirreliest of times. I think, Jim, what we're going to do is we'll play it out, but instead of using the normal intro, outro music, we'll play it out with the squirrely jingle.
And that would make my day. Thank you.
Okay, that's what does this podcast justice. People, we love you. Keep safe. Wash those hands.
Then that's when I think things get a little squirrely.
Yeah. They have gotten squirrely for me.
They get squirrely for all of us.
Yeah.
It's called life, man.
Yeah.
It's a fucking squirrely, the squirrely thing.
Squirrely.
Adjective 1. Mildly insane. 2. Unpredictable and jumpy, often in a cowardly way. 3. Nutty, resembling a squirrel looking for nuts. I read about some squirrely guy who claims he just don't believe in fightin', and I wonder just how long the rest of us can count on being free.